What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arsmont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
We're doing the show again. Yeah, we're back after a week of being away. That was actually me being away. Jason was in town. I just had a little vacation.
It's your turn.
Yes, that's right. This is The Hook, a show about business and marketing and helping you to do better in what you do every single day. If you own a business, well, we got some tips for you that we throw out every single time we do the show. And maybe you have some questions for us. You can always go to thehookradio.com. We love to field questions and answer those on the show and give away stuff every once in a while. We just did that a couple weeks ago, too. Jason Arsmont is our marketing maverick here on The Hook. That means he knows everything in the way of marketing. He can't learn anything else. He knows it all.
I don't know about that. I've got direction in most things marketing, but I wouldn't say I know everything. Yeah.
You sure? That's what you told me whenever I came on, when I started working for you.
Like, look here, son.
You said, hey, I know that you don't have a lot of experience in marketing, but I know everything there is to know.
So we're going to be just fine.
Yes.
Stick with me.
This being brought to you by Brightbox Brand Marketing, which is where we both work. Actually, I work there. Jason, he's the one that created this business.
Yeah. That's our brand marketing firm. So we do everything from, strategic market planning, building out marketing calendars, all the weekly, monthly initiatives. We also do all the web development, graphic design, social media, public relations, content development, and on and on and on. Video production. I mean, what else do we do?
Rebranding. Did you say that?
Yeah, rebranding. I mean, we just handle so much there. That combined with our sister companies in Showbox and Inkbox, we can pretty much handle it all. And that was really the vision when I started Brightbox, was have this one place. We're under one roof. We can oversee a multitude of different type of marketing projects, so that you didn't have to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different vendors all trying to get your promotional products and your website and your brochure and all your printing all to come together. And so, man, after believe it or not, it's been almost 9 years. That all of that's kind of come together.
And whenever I tell Jason, look, we can't do it all, he says, no, we can.
No, we can't. I mean,
we can do it all.
All in all, we have just under 100 employees. So, I mean, yeah, we've got the manpower, we've got the expertise, and we have folks that are disciplined in each of those mediums, from printing to trade shows to web and marketing. I mean, you name it.
Acquisitions going on to make us bigger and better.
We're sure trying. These aren't easy.
You mean it doesn't just happen overnight?
It doesn't just happen. I've done several, over the past 9 years and buying up other companies. And so we kind of made an effort at the beginning of this year that, hey, we were going to deliberately go out. And before it seemed like they always kind of came to us. An opportunity would come up and we'd take advantage of it. And so, man, since I've been actively going out trying to pursue acquisitions, it's been like, okay, where are they at? The deals are a little bit harder to do when you're trying to make them happen. But you were out of town. Did you hear about the big acquisition last week?
I did, and I watched all the fights. You're talking about the UFC, correct?
Yeah, man.
I knew that was going to happen. I had a conversation with one of our clients, a long conversation, and it had nothing to do with their business.
Good. I'm glad you're spending quality time with our clients.
It had everything to do with the UFC, because he's a big UFC fan. I'm a UFC fan. And I said that bringing this UFC 200 with John Jones and Daniel Cormier was a chance for them to leverage the value of that company so that they could sell it. I thought that was one of the big fights that was going to help them. The Brock Lesnar-Mark Hunt fight, of course, that was going to help. And all the other fights, the Tate Nunez.
So what was your spin when Jones
That's exactly what I said. But the problem is now with Jones not being part of that, what's that going to do to the valuation of the company? I thought that it might bring it down. But I think the deal probably already had happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is probably years in the making. Right.
I don't think it was years in the making. I think that it was months in the making. And somebody put something out there probably 2 weeks before Jones had to bow out, or before they took him off the card.
Yeah.
they said that it was going to be sold to the group that it was eventually sold to for $4 billion. And so I thought that it would go down. The amount that they would pay would go down. But evidently the deal was already in place. Yeah.
So those of you who don't know what we're talking about, UFC, we're talking about Ultimate Fighting Championships. This is the MMA, the fighting organization where they put the guys in the ring and they just kick each other's butt.
Yeah.
They just sold last week for an unprecedented amount of $4 billion.
Now, the history of this is that the two owners of the company are the Fertitta brothers. Now, their cousin is our Fertitta over here.
Tillman.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's their cousin. They own hotels and casinos over in Vegas.
His whole family does it big.
So it was the Fertitta brothers, and Dana White had a part of the company.
9% is what I read.
He's the one that told them.
He brought the deal to him, right?
Yeah. He told them years ago, he said, look, this company is for sale for $2 million. Buy it, and we can make it bigger. We can grow this company. And honestly, the company didn't have a strong outlook at first.
A long time.
For quite a while. Then they did The Ultimate Fighter on Spike TV, which was a great series. I watched it from the beginning. But a lot of people weren't being brought to Spike TV because of it until they had the finale where you had Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin fighting.
Oh, that was an unbelievable
And
fight.
it was one of the best fights of all time. Nobody knew who was going to win, but the amount of people watching at the beginning of fights increased by 100%.
Wow.
Probably not 100%.
Wow, Josh, that's
it increased so much by the end of the fight that it made UFC into the company that they became.
Yeah.
And Dana White kept on making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And so $4 billion.
It's unbelievable. And, I heard that their annual revenue is like around $250 million. So, I mean, when you look at it from just an evaluation standpoint, that's like 16 times. I mean, that's just unbelievable, right? That's really impressive. I'm curious now, I heard an interview with Dana White saying that the new owner is going to help take them to the next level. And I'm kind of like, what in the world does that mean? So I got a phone call with Mick Maynard, my
Legacy.
Yeah, with Legacy, and he was one of my founding partners over at the printing company Inkbox, inkboxprinting.com. Little plug there. And so, Mick has spent time. He talks with Dana White, probably every other week or so. They trade off fighters and pick up fighters from his to go to UFC, and he got a couple.
Sage Northcutt was one of Mick's fighters.
Yeah.
Holly Holm was one of Mick's fighters and went over to the UFC.
He's got some good ones. And then he's got another guy that just fought in UFC. I can't remember his name now. I think he was a heavyweight. But anyways, so he was saying the next thing for them. So this organization that bought him has a strong presence in China. And so they're going to be able to take the UFC, ultimately probably here in the next 6 months to a year into China and have a whole new audience and whole new revenue stream, and could be big. I mean, they've tried before bringing fighters out of China into the UFC. I think they always have an issue, and they've never been able to really tap into that market and bring the UFC to China like they did, kind of like what they did with NBA.
With the Yao Ming thing?
Yeah. So it's exciting, man. I mean, that's just unprecedented. I think that's, and to think that Dana White started out as just like a promoter, a manager for Tito and Chuck Liddell, saw this opportunity, brought in some people with the money. He was able to retain 9% of the company. $4 billion, he did pretty good. I mean, he worked his butt off, too. But
he was also childhood friends with the Fertittas, I believe.
Yeah.
So that helped him to have
help the pitch.
Exactly.
Help the pitch. But, it's a good example of always looking for opportunity, looking for ways to connect the dots. And so many people just kind of wait for it to come to them. Obviously, he was in a situation where he went out and sought it out and found it, and then put himself in the position to be the driver's seat.
And I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with Chael Sonnen earlier, and they were talking about Dana going over to continue the job that he's doing now as promoter with the new company. And Chael said there's no way anybody else could step in and do that job.
Yeah.
Just because
so multifaceted. I
you have so much to do all of the time.
Yeah.
And just a boxing promoter couldn't step in like that and do it.
No.
It's different personalities from the boxing side to the UFC.
Yeah, personalities and just style fights. I mean, he's still really involved with putting the fights together and having day-to-day communication with a lot of the fighters, or at least their management teams. I mean, it's just, there's a lot there.
And with the smaller promotions like Mick Maynard.
Yeah, it works with those guys. And it's probably very similar to running a restaurant. That was a horrible segue.
I like that segue.
So, yeah, but
We'll let you roll with it.
We've got our guest today is Paul Miller. He's with Gr8 Plate Hospitality. He's going to be in studio with us here in the next segment or two. For those of you who don't know Gr8 Plate Hospitality, they run Union Kitchen. They've got 3 locations in Bel Air, Memorial, Kingwood. They also run the Merle House, Jack's Grill, and the Rolling Kitchen food truck. Group.
Food truck.
Food truck. Yeah.
I like food trucks.
Yeah. So, maybe we'll see if he brings some food. We'll have to give him a hard time if he doesn't bring That's what they do with all the other big radio guys, right? People will bring food.
I don't want him to bring food in. I'm back from vacation.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
back
You're
on
good.
my diet.
You got to dry up.
Yeah. I'm back on the diet, bro. I got to go work out. I got to get back to my fighting weights.
That's right. Well,
can't
okay,
imagine.
so no food, but this should be a really amazing interview. Paul obviously has got his hands in a lot of different things, talking about multitasking, talk about culture development and leading a team and, staying focused on a bigger picture rather than just, one single location or one single objective. I know there's going to be a lot that we can pull out of him as far as knowledge and experience. So I'm guess stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this interview.
All right. Well, he's coming up shortly. Up next, the business tip right here on The Hook.
There's a secret on the telephone tonight.
You are listening to The Hook. Myself, Josh, along with the marketing maverick. That's Jason Arsmont, the guy that knows everything. And, well, you can reach out to him, too. You can say hi. You have a question. You have something you want to tell him. You want to say, hey, look, this show, I don't think it's going to cut it. You're not going to make it a month, and it's going to be gone. Well, joke's on you. It's been around longer than a month, so.
We passed the month mark. Yeah.
This may be the first time you ever hear the show, too. TheHookRadio.com is where you find us and all the episodes that we've done in the past. The last 2 weeks, Ryan Buck was on with us.
Yeah, with GCVS.
Yep. So this also being brought to you by ontoboxtraining.com, because we don't just do websites and marketing. Do more than that. Do some training.
We do a lot of training. It's also our consulting arm. It's really a piece of what this whole show for me was about, is just kind of giving back and helping other companies leverage the experience that I had and my team has in helping their companies grow. And so ontoboxtraining.com, we do just that. We help take clients through, a proprietary workflow analysis program. We do corporate training for culture management, sales management, you name it. So if you're having any problems or shortfallings in some of your departments, feel free to go to OnToBox Training or just go to thehookradio.com, shoot me a message. I'd love to talk with you about that, see if we have a solution for you. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But I'm passionate about business and I want to be here to help you guys out. So definitely check us out.
On the sales side, you can do sales training?
I do a lot of sales training, yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of my original, kind of area of business that I wanted to specialize in. I spent a number of years working a number of different sales jobs and, cut my teeth from doing, Gallup poll phone sales to car sales and moving up to specialty chemicals and corporate and IT sales. So I've been in a lot of different arenas and, anyone who knows me knows that over the past year or so, I've kind of been just diving into this new science that we have, this neuroscience around sales and these emotional triggers that we kind of go through to complete a sales cycle and complete a sales process. The study that I follow is with Russell Granger.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually been on with 7 Triggers to Yes. And you can go to thehookradio.com, go to the radio, and you can see his episode where he talks specifically about his book, The 7 Triggers to Yes, all based on this neurological study to see what does the human brain have to go through to make a buying decision. And he breaks his triggers down into kind of these 7 distinct areas. Friendship, you have to be, across the friendship, you have to build authority. Contrast, you have to have contrast between your product and theirs. Reason why, help build why you want to buy. Reciprocity, giving something makes people want to give back. Consistency, so building, consistent message again and again and again, and then hope. And, I guess for today, rather than trying to go through all those or break all of those down or talk about my sales process in using those triggers, wanted to talk about one of the ones that I think is the most important, and really it's the authority trigger.
Okay.
I feel, Josh, you do some sales. You're not a sales guy, per se.
I had that conversation this past week whenever I was on the beach in Destin, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, I'm thinking back to that.
So I met dropping locations.
I met up with a buddy of mine, and I hadn't seen him for like 15 years. And he said, "So what do you do now?" And I said, "Well, I work in marketing," and started talking about that. And he said, "So you do sales? Like you're the sales guy for everything going on?" I said, "No, no, I don't do sales, but what my boss does is the sales part." And he said, "Oh, okay. So if somebody needs something extra, do they go through him?" I said, "No, well, that's through me." So, okay, so I guess I do kind of
do sales. Yeah,
I do sales.
You do sales. You're not a sales guy, but the reason why you do well in sales is because you're able to hit a lot of these 7 triggers naturally. Right? Especially the friendship trigger. You're great at getting people's guards down. They feel like they can trust you. They get to know you. And contrast and comparing if they do it with us or if they don't do it with us, right? If you build your website or you don't, or you do this video or not. So a lot of those things are natural. The one that I think is difficult or that I don't see enough people putting effort into is the authority trigger.
Okay.
The authority trigger positions you as an authority on the topic in whatever it is you're selling. And if you do this one trigger really, really well, it makes all of the other triggers, as far in my experience. And Russell may have a different opinion, and he may actually have some thoughts on that in the last interview that I did. But for me, I've noticed that the more I can build the authority trigger, the easier all of the other triggers are. Mm-hmm. And so, I look at a lot of professional people that are in that space, and, what are you doing to build your authority? One of the most powerful ways of building that is by building out a personal brand. And, this is something where so many of us just fall completely flat. Whether you're looking for a job or you're looking to run a company or a department or you're actually in sales, your personal brand is probably the number one tool for building authority on the topic that you want to have your career in. And so, I challenge people to, be committed to what you do, get on social media, build out. Just start by going to your LinkedIn page, going to your social media pages and look what's on there now. Are you talking about yourself as an authority on the topic of what it is that you sell? Even if you only sell cell phones, are you talking about cell phones? Are you being first of mind when people think about cell phones? One of the things that we can do is not just look at social media, but look at all of your touch points. And, we can go back and forth from whether you're specifically a sales guy or you're just somebody in a company trying to build your brand up through the ranks. But starting with social media, then start looking at networking. How can you do a better job of networking, not just with the people that you know, but people that you don't know, going to events, and really making a statement. When you walk up to that event, I know it's easy so many times to go to somewhere and be like, oh, hey, they have an open bar, and your whole objective is kind of thrown out the window after you have a first drink or two. But I want you guys to think about that when you're going to that event. Every person you meet, and whether it's only 1 or 2 or it's 3 dozen, you're shaking someone's hand. What are they going to leave with, that night, knowing about you? If there's only one sentence you can tell them, it's got to be related to what it is you do as a professional.
How many times have you been caught off guard without a card, a business card? Especially if you're in an event where people are drinking, and I'm going to remember who you are for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. If I have a card, you definitely will remember that.
Yeah.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. Don't leave your cards, folks. And if you do, try to find a pen. I would say make sure that you can write your information down, or just be insistent that you get their information so that you can follow up. That's one of the things that I do that I've gotten a lot of good success with is, maybe I didn't do my pitch real well, or I didn't craft my takeaway message real well. But every time I go somewhere and I'm networking, I'm grabbing everyone's business cards, and I always follow up either that night, if I've had a little too much to drink, the next morning. But I always follow up with a brief, hey, thank you for connecting. Here's a little bit about what I have to do. Would love to learn more about what you have to do to see if we can't help each other in business. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go try to find them on LinkedIn, whatever, all those other places, and connect in multiple different ways.
Stalk them, yes.
Just stalk them out, learn everything I can. No, but it's important to do that because now you're showing yourself as a professional. And guys, I know I've done sales things at cell phone places, car dealerships, and I always hear it. Well, that doesn't really apply for what I do, But that's BS, because if you own your social media platform and you own it in the sense of what it is you do, and say you're selling cell phones, you're blogging about the latest cell phones, you're showing pictures of the latest stuff, you're encouraging people to come by the store for the latest promotion, you're on your social media, you have a blog. That's all part of your personal brand. And if you're not sharing those things, especially if you're a salesperson, if you're not sharing those things, you're doing yourself a discredit. And your company.
And you can also let them know if you're close to a Pokemon Go stop.
Gosh, that thing is just. You're going to take us way off topic with that Pokemon Go, but that's really blown up. It's good marketing. I don't know if that rolls into personal branding.
No.
It is a great thing.
No.
But I've also seen people say, no Pokemon. You cannot play Pokemon in the store. Like they do not want the Pokemon traffic.
Yeah, I can see
You're
that
hearing
too.
these kids are getting hit by cars and walking off cliffs and
doing it while they're driving.
Doing it while they're driving.
Anyway, we're way off topic now.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
but look, we've got a great guest. I told you guys earlier, we've got Paul Miller with Gr8 Plate Hospitality. They manage a number of different restaurants around town, so his expertise and skill on management and oversight and multitasking is going to be on point. So
right.
you're going to want to stick around.
He's coming in next. Thanks for listening. TheHookRadio.com is where you find us online. That's Jason Arsmont. You're checking out The Hook.
I'm leaving Stephenville. I'm packed up and I'm ready.
This is The Hook. You're listening to us on 950 AM. My name is Josh, along with Jason Arsmont. That's the Marketing Maverick, and you can find us always online, thehookradio.com, with the guests. This is where we do our guest segment.
Yeah.
Every single show.
Yeah, every week we try to bring in somebody from usually the local Houston community, business owners, marketing professionals. And our guest today is owner of Gr8 Plate Hospitality. With so many different restaurants, transforming Paul's Kitchen into the Merle House, a full-service event venue, all the way down to Union Kitchen, Merle House, Jack's Grill, and the roll-in kitchen food. I mean, just so many different things. Let's just bring him on. Let's just talk about what he's doing and how he got all these things going. Today we've got Paul Miller. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I'm listing off all these different restaurants, all these different concepts, and how you guys are involved in, I guess, the ownership or the management. Fill us in a little bit more about Gr8 Plate Hospitality, specifically what it is you guys do. I think help give our listeners an understanding.
Okay. My name is Paul Miller. I am the owner of Gr8 Plate Hospitality. We've got 3 Union Kitchens, getting ready to be 4. We've got 2 Jack's Grills, one on Shepherd and one on South Rice. We've got the roll-in kitchen food truck that we can bring to you. We've got a big old 28-foot smoker trailer that we can bring out and do barbecues. We've got a crawfish cooker on it. We've got a grill, live fire mesquite grill. We've got the Merle House, which is a banquet and event center facility, which we can do. We've done bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, weddings, birthdays, business meetings. I mean, you name it. The idea is we really just want to be able to capture any business that's out there. We want to be able to take care of you, and then once we get you in the family, once we've served you once, we hope that you come back and you want to do a catering at the house. So you call the roll-in kitchen, or you have a special life event that you want to celebrate. So you go to the Merrill House, and you take your wife out for dinner, and you go to the Union Kitchen. So we're trying to hit all aspects of the market.
Yeah. So I guess so. How did you get started in that? Because it sounds like you're really talking about like this experience. Was there kind of experience that you felt was missing in the marketplace, or
I think I'm very similar to about 90% of restaurateurs that are out there. We all started with Pappas. And I went to school at Purdue University. I met my dad down in Dallas. So I fly down, and we went to Papados, Papacitos, Pappas Barbecue, Pappas Brothers Steakhouse, and I think I went to another meeting someplace else, and Pappas Catering was catering the meeting that I was at. And again, I'm coming out of college.
I like this.
Yeah, I'm like, these guys have got their stuff together, right? And at that time, I didn't know they owned all the property. I didn't know they had their own landscaping company, their own fish boats, their own,
wow.
I didn't know any of this stuff. So I went over and I interviewed with them, and I got a job, job offer on the spot. And that was actually my first management position. And, probably, my most valuable management position that I've ever had. Because I learned some things that I didn't want to do. But much more than that, I learned a lot of things I do want to do. I learned how to treat people. I learned how to, to take a whole fish that's gutted and bring it in and cost it out and figure out how much I need to charge on the plate and add sauce to it and your Q factor with your dirty rice and vegetables and all those kind of things. And it was just, being a kid fresh out of college, it was just, I was overwhelmed with how much information there was. And I spent a long time with those guys. The only reason I left was, they invested in Luby's, and I really wanted to be a GM, for that company very badly. And I thought I, had a real future there. But when they invested in Luby's, they pretty much stopped building Union Kitchens.
Right. Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, not Union Kitchens.
I'm like, wait a minute, that's yours.
Yeah, that's mine. We're not stopping anytime soon. So, But yeah, so they stopped, and all the GMs in that company are young guys, energetic, making a ton of money. Nobody leaves. GMs don't leave that company. Yeah. So they basically said, we'll bring you back to Houston. You can go to the main office. You can do something like that, but we don't have a position. Yeah. So that was when I left, and
you're like, I'll go back to Houston. Yeah. I'll just do my own thing.
Yeah, to try to figure out what's going on. It took me a few more years. I opened Gr8 Cafe down in the Galleria, which has just been unbelievably successful. The revenue that they do, and Cheesecake Factory's they're so well organized. I mean, it's a really, really sharp organization. And then I left there, and I was a general manager at McCormick & Schmick's in Uptown Park for a while. I think I was with them for about 3 or 4 years, just before Tillman bought them. When he started coming in, I started getting a little bit worried.
Saw some writing on the wall.
Yeah, and I didn't, again, a lot of people do really well in that company. And I've met Tillman a few times, and he's been really, really nice to me. Seems like a really good guy. Obviously, he's fantastically successful, but I kind of got to the point where, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, why don't you go do your own thing? I think it's about time for you to get out and try it out. Yeah. So that's when
so I'm always curious, and now looking at the portfolio of what you got here, I mean, it's obviously impressive, but it had to start with kind of one leap. What was that moment for you where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy my first piece of land, or did you commission your first restaurant, or what was that leap like?
It's funny. I've been putting together a business plan for years, right? So I've got a good job. I'm kind of wondering, am I really ever going to lead this job? Do I want to move up with these guys and become a regional manager, or something like that, or do I want to go off and do my own thing? So I had been thinking like that for probably 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So slowly but surely, I'm writing this business plan. And then, like I said, when Tillman was coming around, and I kind of thought it was going to get picked up, and I was talking to my dad, he goes, "Why don't you look at really going off and doing something?" So I took my business plan, I took it to a bunch of friends and family members, and I raised the amount of money that I thought I would need to raise to get going.
Sure.
And I take it to my dad, and I sit down, and I'm showing him all this stuff, and he goes, "Do you like all these people?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, they're family, friends, stuff like that." And he goes, "And they like you?" "Yeah." "If you lost all their money, do you think they would like you?" And I was like, man, now that you put it like that, I don't know.
Like, what do you mean? I could fail?
Yeah, that's not even an option here. I hadn't even. That's not even in the back of my mind, So, what I really needed was about $130,000, $140,000 to get into the first restaurant, which, in the overall scheme of things, really isn't all that much. And he said, "Well, let me invest in you and do this one, and let's see how it goes."
Yeah.
And man, I was there all day, every day, open to close. I had a cot back in the office. I had a chef that was a good friend of mine that I got to come over with me, and we just
that's awesome.
We literally asked the people in the neighborhood, "What do you want?"
Right.
They're like, "We want sandwiches and salads and soups at lunch. We want a place where we can go get steaks and chops and a piece of fish or a burger at night." And that's how the first menu came about. It was literally
wow.
And my bar at that first restaurant,
social bar, man.
Yeah, it was my first bar was actually a roll cart. I bought a 3-tiered roll cart, and I had vodka, tequila, and like maybe one other liquor.
Yeah.
And I had a couple glasses, and I had a shaker can, and I had a little ice bucket like you'd get at a hotel, know. And I'm like cruising around with this little cart,
like stewardess.
Yeah. And then finally, when we made enough money, then we went ahead and built a big bar or not big. I mean, it's big for that restaurant, but we built a bar in there, and then about 2 years in, we put enough money in the bank to go do number 2, and that was over on Memorial. And that's a going from 3,100 square feet to 5,000 square feet, that was big.
Pretty intimidating.
I mean, it really is. Yeah. Like, I needed more managers. I needed, it was over. That was probably the most overwhelming thing ever. Buying the first restaurant didn't, in hindsight being 2020, it didn't even really stress me out. Yeah. I thought we were going to be successful, and I was there every day. I was there to make sure that we were going to be successful.
Right.
The rough one was going from 1 to 2 and not being able to be in the restaurant all day, every day, talking to every single guest and making sure things are perfect. Now you're having to trust, your
somebody
baby
else at the same time.
your baby
Yeah.
to somebody
Yeah.
else, and that was the toughest part. But
Awesome.
now we're working on our eighth venue, and
Wow.
it's probably 8 in 5 years. 5 years we got this will be 8 venues, so we're pretty
Valuable stuff. We're talking with Paul Miller with Gr8 Plate Hospitality. So I'm curious. So you said that for number one wasn't too difficult, and number two started getting a little sketchy. Was there like a number where, okay, I've got enough infrastructure past 3 or 4 or 5 where it's like, okay, these are getting a little bit easier to do? Or is it always?
I haven't hit that yet.
You haven't hit it yet?
I'm hoping that's right around the corner. But the good news is having 3 union kitchens. I have an extra manager in each restaurant. So it's not a huge financial impact to train a manager. We just hired a guy, Robert Salyers, really nice guy, came from Table 57 with HEB, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. He's on board and he's learning the ropes, but he's also running shifts. He's working at one of the restaurants. So it's not like, when I opened the second restaurant, it was me training all the guys hands-on in the store. Now I'm counting on Craig Lindstrom, who's the general manager over at Tuck 2, which is Memorial. I'm counting on the guys over at Tuck 1 to train a couple of back of the house guys. Victor Vasquez is training one of the back of the house guys now. We hired Johnny Wesley, who's going to be our corporate pastry chef, and he's working at Memorial fixing all the desserts at all the restaurants, and then he's going to go to the new place. And then, from my days with Grand Lux Cafe, I hired Mike Petrello, who's going to be the executive chef at the new restaurant. So he's in the mix now, and he's working on the new menu revision. And Adam Sabir, and I could just go through now. Having 8 venues, you got a team. It's not like it's me. It's me and these guys that are doing it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I heard 2 really valuable lessons in there. One I'll ask you. So from the time that you said, okay, hey, I'm going to do this, like obviously you kind of had it planned for a few years. From the time you said, I'm going to do this, to the time you kind of like broke ground or signed the first deal, how much time was there in that window?
From actually saying, I'm quitting my job to getting into the first restaurant.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was like 2 weeks.
See? What? And this is what I always tell people. People will tell me, hey, I'm stuck in this point in my life. I can't seem to go anywhere. I've got these goals or these dreams that I've been wanting to do. I mean, you had yours for 3, 4, 5 years, you said, and then all of a sudden within 2 weeks, the whole chapter of your life, a new chapter can begin. I mean, I love that. I love hearing that, and I love hearing other entrepreneurs that I was pretty much doing the same thing for a long time, always wanting to do this, and then 2 weeks changed my whole life.
Yeah, I just did it. And honestly, that's what the biggest fear, obviously, is of the unknown. So I've got this great, comfortable job. I'm making a ton of money. I got a nice car. I got a nice house. Now I'm
risking
jumping off the bridge, right?
Yeah.
If this place fails, I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to lose my house. You get worried. But like I said, when Juan Ariano and I went into this restaurant, we were just there. It was not. Failure was absolutely not an option.
Yeah,
and
you owned it.
Yeah,
and that's the second lesson that I kind of hear is probably kudos and hats off to your dad, man. I mean, I've had so many buddies whose families go in quickly to help them. I love the concept that your dad probably did in the back of his mind. He's like, I'm gonna let him go out and try to raise all this money. Let's see how bad let's see if he's gonna go work for it.
That's exactly right.
That's a brilliant way to do that. I know I kind of face that struggle with my own kids. They're getting older now, and I'm like, man, how are you going to help them, without over-helping? And that's just a perfect example. I mean, you guys have a pretty good relationship, obviously.
We do now, for sure.
For sure, because he's invested.
Yeah. He's got a vested interest in our success. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But, when I was growing up, he told me 100 times, I'm not your buddy. I'm your dad.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
We didn't go pal around. When I went off to college, if I had bad grades, we wouldn't talk for a semester. I would call the house and he would answer the phone and I'd be like, hey dad, how you doing? And he'd hand the phone off to my mom. Here's your son. It's ridiculous. But our relationship, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't good for years and years. And then when I moved back here to Houston and I started having a family and
we probably started respecting the work ethic that you were putting in, seeing that you were busting your butt, we've
had a little bit of success. So that's a very good, it's a very good thing.
That's awesome, man.
Was Drew Brees a bad influence on you? I mean, going to Purdue?
Okay. So here's what's awesome. I actually took Drew on I was a senior, and he was a senior in high school. I took him on his recruiting trip.
Really?
Me and like 8 or 10 guys took him on his recruiting trip when he came to Purdue. And it's funny because, he had blown out his knee the year before. Mm-hmm. They ended up winning the state championship out of Lakeway or something like that. And he comes to town, and this kid's like 6 foot tall, skinny, really had just kind of rehabbed from a devastating knee injury. And I go into Coach Jim Coletto's office. He was our head coach at the time. And I'm like, so we want this guy? Like this is the guy that we really want. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He's going to be a stud. And we took him out and showed him a good time. And I think he might have committed like the following day to Purdue. It's pretty neat. Now, I wish
you've been in hospitality your whole life.
I kind of have. Yeah. I wish I had a couple more years to play. If that we would have gone to some bowl games when I was there. We were awful, but they went to I think the Alamo Bowl was the very next season. We went from, I don't know, like 3-8 to like we lost 2 games the following season.
I'm a Saints fan, huge Saints
Are you
fan.
really?
So yeah, that's awesome for me to hear.
Yeah.
That means you paved the way for him to bring along that championship.
There you go.
Somewhere along the line.
Somewhere in there.
We appreciate
I'm going to claim
it, Paul.
responsibility
Thank you
for
very
it.
much for all your hard work.
Now, if he saw me today, I'd be like, "Hey, Paul Miller, I took you on your trip." He'd be like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah. And they're trying to plan an event, and he's like, we really want this guy
to cater?
We want this guy to cater?
So the least you can do.
Yeah, I know. Give me a chance. Just give me a chance.
All right, we got to take a brief break. We'll be right back next with Paul Miller right here on The Hook.
Said you want to stand there with your arms around me, but I can't feel
TheHookRadio.com is where you find us if you're just getting in the middle of this conversation that we're having with our guest today, Paul Miller. It's good because you can listen to the whole thing. We'll have it posted for you within a couple days. Any of the past episodes you want to check out, again, TheHookRadio.com. Got Jason Arsemont, the marketing maverick, in here with us. Great conversation today.
Yeah, this is good. I can already tell we're going to probably have Paul come back. Like, there's your good conversation, a lot of good talking points. As we mentioned earlier, Paul is the owner of Gr8 Plate Hospitality, currently operating in the Union Kitchen at 3 locations, the Merle House, Jack's Grill, and the Rolling Kitchen food truck.
You got to say it right. It's not the Merle like Merle Haggard. It's the Merle House.
The Merle House. Yes. Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
No. So what's the latest thing you're working on? What's the most recent concept?
Well, there's a lot of stuff we're actually working on right now.
Awesome.
I've got my chef that runs the food truck, Cesar Alvarez. If things keep going well with him and he keeps getting reviewed well and the food keeps going the direction that it's going, I mean, just from the time that he took over the food truck to where it's at now, it's light years. I mean, he's done a really, really good job. So, I'm talking to him right now about maybe trying to find something brick and mortar. We really want to own property. So we own the strip center where the Jack's on South Rice is. We own the whole center, which I'm in the process of releasing right now. We own the property, which is almost a city block at Shepherd, which is where the Jack's Bar and Grill is. We own the property where Merrill House sits. And this is a really good time in the market for property. The stock market's down and oil's not doing so well, and you would think that the housing market has slowed down a little bit in Houston, but it's really rolling. I mean, there's stuff's not staying on the market for very long. Yeah. So we're really interested in owning property and going in that direction. So if we can find something, like I said, 3,200 square feet, good sized parking lot, I'll try to get Cesar in a brick and mortar, and we're working on a couple other concepts also but nothing high end. We did Paul's Kitchen. We won Best New Restaurant 2015, which was awesome. We did everything we wanted to do. I mean, every goal that I set out for Chef Paul Lewis and the team that was over there, we accomplished, except making money.
There's that one detail.
Yeah, there's that one little thing, and it could have been a little bit more of a passion project probably, but I kind of came to the realization that we're working really, really hard and we're doing a really good job, but it's just not that there's so many restaurants that are opening in Houston. Let's focus on things that we do really well, as opposed to trying to think outside the box and do the fine dining. So that was when we changed it to the Merrill House, and in the first month that we changed it from the restaurant to a banquet facility, we did 31 events in 31 days.
Goodness.
It was it's amazing. We have Rotary groups that come over there for breakfast. We've had business meetings from companies like Transocean and NOV and DNOW and things like that. We've had birthdays and celebrations, and it's just the thing about that's so much fun is I control my labor. I control my food cost. I know what those 2 numbers are before I even open the doors for the event.
Wow, yeah.
And it's like 3 hours. You come in, you do a wedding. We know it's going to take 4 hours. and they walk out the door and we lock up and we go about our merry way. Whereas in a restaurant, you got no idea. You know, if it rains or, you know, heaven forbid there's a tornado or, you know, something that you have no control over, you may think you're getting ready to walk into a $10,000 shift and you end up doing, you know, $100 or $2,500 or, you know, something like that.
That's interesting, man. So had that concept or that kind of venue place, had that always been in the back of your mind, or was that something you guys really was like mid-stride? You're like, hey, how can we use all these resources and do something better with it? Because that's quite a separation from a restaurant, man.
And that's almost the second thing that you said is exactly the way that we looked at it.
Wow.
You know, we were rolling along, and like I said, we won some awards and things were going really well, and we were really happy about it. But then when you sit down and you look at the numbers, you go, God, this just, you know, it's not adding up. Why are we not just absolutely crushing it? And then we said, well, all right, what are the factors that we're dealing with here? Parking was 100% valet, right? So as a restaurant, that's not fantastic.
Right.
As a banquet facility, most
That
people
could be
want
cool.
that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we're tucked back off the road. You know, you're not right on Kirby, so people weren't driving by it every day and seeing it. As a restaurant, not great. As a banquet facility, you want that little bit of privacy being tucked back in the corner, and it makes you really flexible to do different things. So, and then inside the restaurant, it's wide open. It's a big open space. It's not what I would consider cozy. So again, as a restaurant, not great. Don't have a bunch of booths out in the middle, but as a banquet facility, you want big and wide open. And we put these big round tables out there. We can fit 400 people in there. I think our capacity inside's 311. Plus we've got the bar, and then we can fit another 80 or 90 on the patio.
Wow.
So we can do big events, and it just kind of clicked, and we said, all right, let's make the switch. And we actually met with the girls over at Gr8 when we were trying to come up with the name. And Merrill is my father is Merrill Anthony Miller Jr., and then my grandfather is Merrill Anthony Miller. So we were kind of talking about it, like what's feminine enough that a woman will be happy to have a anniversary there or a birthday or something like that.
Right.
Yet it's masculine enough to where we can market it to oil companies or, you know, big events or, you know, things like that. And Merrill just kind of sounded pretty cool and
kind of hooked. Yeah.
It worked out.
That's
And it
cool.
worked out well. And it was literally like an epiphany as we're sitting in the office. I go, well, my dad's name is Merrill, and everybody looked at each other and we're like, That's it. That's the way. That's the way that we're going.
I think that's so smart, man. I do a lot of consulting, meet with a lot of business owners who they have revenue, they're generating revenue, they do some things really well, they have a strong team, but they won't think outside of the current model and say, hey, how could we take that same revenue or the same quality, the same team, whatever it is we're producing, and put it into a different box? Mm-hmm. You know, I think just to make that switch, that decision, man, that's not easy. It's interesting. So you were talking about buying real estate. That's something that we're looking at right now too with our companies, just because the market is kind of where it's at. Is there anything in particular in looking for real estate? I mean, you look at so many restaurants and they say when you get to a lot of them, they're like, it's really a real estate game. You know, I wonder, you know, are you at that point yet, or is it just like part of the finance? You're like, hey, we need to own this stuff.
We're like you know, we own 3, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
You know, 3 of the I guess we own the rolling kitchen too. I wouldn't call that real estate, but you know, it's expensive nonetheless. You know, my dad told me, you know, I was an athlete my whole life, and we watched the drafts together and things like that, and we always kind of argue back and forth about who the best guy is. And my dad said to me one time, doesn't matter what you need, you pick the best guy on the board, right? So if the best player that's available is a defensive end and you don't think you need a defensive end, but this guy is just absolutely unbelievable, you take him and then you figure out what you're going to do there.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way that we look at the real estate. Huh. You look around, you let's say there's 5 or 6 that are available. You look at the best one, and you may not have it in your mind yet. I want to put a Jack's there or a Union Kitchen there or one of our new concepts there. But it's the best property in the best neighborhood with the highest potential, so you buy it. And that's kind of the way we looked at Jack's Grill. You know, I didn't know that I wanted to get into selling $4.85 burgers at a counter service situation.
All right.
But we looked at the strip center, so we had a couple different streams of revenue coming in. You look at that, owning the entire block over on Shepherd. If I screw something up and the restaurant goes south, we'll scrape it and do 8 or 10 townhouses. What a great location right off of I-10, you know.
Yeah,
So you've got other options. So that's really the way that we look at property. You know, find the best, the highest per capita income, the most traffic going by on the surface streets, things like that, and then pull the trigger.
I have a feeling you're going to answer this next question similar to how you answered your real estate. But what about people? You've talked about surrounding yourself with great people. How have you been able to identify or lead and kind of create a culture of being able to retain that?
I think I've made as many mistakes as I've made, good decisions. I try to go with my gut. There's a few things that I say inside the company that that my guys know, and one of them is hire for smiles, train for skills. So if somebody's sitting across the desk from me while I'm interviewing them and they've got a frown on their face and they're crossing their arms, but their resume is spectacular and all this stuff, I'll pass. Because I need somebody in the restaurant who's going to be the mayor of that restaurant and shake the hands and kiss the babies and go around and do things like that. And then when I find those people, I really work hard to try to take care of them. So we have a few things that we do from that point forward that we call E-cubed. So we've got events, which we've got tickets to almost every event in town, whether it be a concert or a sporting event or something like that. So I try to get them and their families to go out and join us at things. I try to involve them in different stuff and let them do things that they haven't necessarily done before. And then we have education, which is I've got 18 level 2 WSET guys. I've got a guy who's getting ready to go through Cicerone, which is the beer sommelier.
Oh yeah.
I've got my director of operations right now is going through CSS, which is the certified spirit specialist. So education, and I pay for it. Those are the guys that I want in the company.
Right.
And then the last E is empowerment. And I'm not the kind of guy who walks in and cracks the whip and starts yelling and all this kind of stuff. I got to be the good guy. I got guys around me who can be the bad guy, which is great. Right. But I get to be the good guy. So I want to empower. If I hire somebody as a GM or an executive chef, I hired you for your skill.
Yeah.
If I put you in a box and don't let you do what you do, then I'm the one who's being the idiot. I gotta empower these guys to go out and make the right decisions and take care of people and build the business and things like that. So it's that's really how I look at our staff. What can I do in those three areas to keep somebody on?
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, we've got a suite at the football game. A lot of these guys have either never been to a professional football game or if they've gone, they're up in like the third deck or maybe even if you're lucky you're on club, but we go to the suite and you got Jamie who's not only working for us at the suite, but he now works for us at the restaurants also because he does such a good job. Yeah. He takes care of you and you have a couple beers and you relax and you get to know people better and it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, it's obvious that it's working for you guys. It's so impressive what you've done in a short period of time, building out all these concepts. And now I know you listeners are going to have a ton of questions, and I'm going to have Paul come back. So what I want to encourage you guys to do is go to the website hookradio.com, shoot us some questions that you might have, something that I can entice Paul to come back with next time and give us some more insight from culture development to managing the crews to building out concept to commercial real estate. I mean, we've covered a lot in a short period of time, and I'll
bring food next time.
There you go. We were talking about Josh was like, no food. I just came back from vacation.
I'm on a diet here.
Yeah. Well, I know we just scratched the surface. So, Paul, I want to thank you so much for your time, man. It's been great getting to know you, and thanks for sharing your businesses with us.
Cool. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And you can catch us right here back on the 950 next week on The Hook.